Welcome back to another episode of Dear Single Mom. I am your founder and host, Clarion Brown. Welcome back. And today, guys, I have a guest with me on today. You guys, her story is absolutely beyond amazing. The woman of God has so much wisdom. She's poured into other single mothers, and I am just super excited to have her on my show. After I heard her speak 1 or 2 times, I said I have to have her on my show to pour into the mothers and to pour into my audience, and shoot, to even pour into me, because I'm still a single mother temporarily too. So as I always say on any of all my podcasts, I have my notes ready. I am ready to receive, and I am open. I am no better than you just because I have this platform, but I too take in from my guests as well. So today I have with me Audrey Renee. She is a writer at heart, and she is also an author, a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, and startup coach. After having her daughter, her world changed. She felt she had no clue on how to be a mother or how to raise her daughter. After a relationship turned into being cheated on and a failed engagement, I know about that, she felt more empowered than ever to defeat the negative connotation of how people look at single moms. Yes, I'm loving it already. After embracing homelessness, she ended up living in a transitional home with other single mothers who were like sisters. She went to therapy, did a whole lot of self development, and God turned her pain into purpose. Won't He do it? Yes, He will. That is so true. So she created Dear Single Mommy blog to help single mothers realize they are women first.
Yes,
That is so powerful.
yes.
That's so true. They have needs, wants, and desires.
Mhm.
And to recognize God's best for them will take internal work, starting with forgiveness,
Yeah.
healing, and changing their mentality. Audrey finds that if you take care of the woman, it overflows into being an amazing mother. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow, wow. Welcome, Audrey. How are
Good.
you?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good. No, thanks for coming to be a part of the show. I'm super excited. Just that bio in itself just said I can pinpoint and bring out 2 or 3 points amazingly right
Mhm.
there. But so just take us a little bit deeper into your single mother journey, and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because children are a blessing from the Lord, but how did you become a single mother?
Okay.
Because I know for some women that it may have been brokenness that led them to sleep with that guy, or
Yeah.
so what led you to become a temporary single mother?
Yes. Temporary. So of course, like everybody else, I met a guy. And I believe that me and this guy fulfilled each other's, we tried to heal each other's wounds with our presence and with intimacy and different things of that nature. And so I was in a relationship, we got engaged, and then I moved all the way out to California because he was in the
Mm-hmm.
military, and we began to. It was a shift that occurred that I definitely ignored. You know,
Mm.
there are things that I saw that I knew would interrupt eventually in this relationship, and my reasons, my motives, because I want to hold myself accountable for going out there with him, were not motives
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
being an engaged woman ready to be married. I'll say that,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
didn't mean like cheating. I think we unsubconsciously use people to get us to where we want to go. And my dream place was to go to California. My dream was to go out there and pursue some things. And so when I saw that I had a ticket to do so, I think that I engaged even more in the relationship. Um, and force
Mm.
myself to love someone that I probably didn't truly love, you know. So I want to say
Whew.
that because I think some women, we don't hold ourselves accountable for the fact that we've played a little bit of a role in certain
Yeah.
situations, you know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I believe he saw that shift. I believe that you know, I can't tell his side of the story. And so what ended up happening
Yeah.
was just lies began to erupt. And there was no information given to me. I ended up moving to San Antonio, Texas, because I was going to stay with a friend at the time because he had basically lied about needing to go on a deployment. And I stayed,
Wow.
yeah, I stayed out there with my friend in San Antonio, Texas. And I really, the thing that I wanted to do in California, I just started in San Antonio, Texas. And I
Mm-hmm.
basically started building life out there. Found out I was pregnant a month after I moved with my daughter, who is going on 7 this year. And basically, what ended up happening was, after I had a community out there, and it was crazy because even when you take a detour, God is already prepared for the detours. The
Yeah.
community that I had, they actually were based out in where I was lived at, which was in Virginia, and the church that I went to prior to me leaving to go with him to California after our engagement. And they were out there building the new campus. And so these people I knew, and God was connecting me to a community of people who would basically be helping me through what I didn't, which would be a hurtful transition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
After I had Amara, I found out that, the person that I thought I was still with, he had moved on. He was found out he was with another woman, and she was pregnant as well. And her and my daughter are
Oh
6 months
wow.
apart. So I ended up finding that out right after I had Amara. Literally right after. I thank God that He showed me afterwards.
Jesus.
And I was very
Yeah.
upset. I think somewhere in my mind, wrong is wrong, period. So it wasn't no, trying to, censor my story about what occurred and what hurt me. I didn't cheat. I was still faithful, even though I was in San Antonio, because I was still waiting for him to come back so that we continue to be together.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think I knew something was up, and I've tried to block it out of my mind. Fast forwarding, I
Mm.
had my daughter, and everything kind of just came crashing down. And I believe that God wanted me to transition out of Texas to go back home because there were some giants that I still needed to defeat here. But more importantly, there was ministry that needed to be birthed here in my hometown. And so
Wow.
everything came crashing down. When I tell you I held on, held on over there because I was like, I don't want to go back. There's nothing there for me. I held on,
Right.
and everything just. I lost 2 apartments. Because I had a C-section. I was not, and I didn't stay. I wasn't at my job for more than 6 months or a year. They couldn't pay me my
Mm-hmm.
full check, so everything was falling down financially. I was asking him for help, and he came through, but it was always last minute, and then it was more money that was needed to take care of the apartment, and so there were different things. There was inconsistency from him, and just things I wanted to hold on
Mm-hmm.
to him because even though I found out he cheated, I still wanted my family, and that was the picture that was in my mind, and I had to destroy an
Right.
illusion to come into my
Mm.
reality of what he had already chosen, that he did not choose me, that he chose something else. He had another option, and he just didn't let me in on the fact that he wanted to move
Mm.
on. And so I ended up going
Mm-hmm.
home. Like, literally, a girl was from the military. She was from our church, and she said she's going to Virginia. That's where she was going to be stationed, and she could drop me off. I asked a friend to sell everything in my apartment. I left my apartment, and then went back home to stay with my parents. Stayed with my parents for about a year. My parents were not in the best place as well. So when they weren't in the best place, when I was trying to get back on my feet, they were pulling from me and taking from me. As I was trying to, get back
Oh.
in my own space. So any
Mm-hmm.
money that I had or anything that I was collecting, I felt like I had to give it to them because I was living in their space, and there was just no footing of getting back up. So after and then I got into it with my father, because when you're trying to be a mother and you have a child, parents still see you as a child. And so that's what was occurring. And so my relationship with them began to get sour because they were still seeing me as this child when I was trying to be a woman and be a mother and take care of my responsibility with my daughter, Amara. So I transitioned out of there, went and stayed with another relative, slept on the couch, wanted to commit suicide because by then I didn't have anything. When I left to go to California, he had all of my stuff because we were moving in together. I was engaged. So
Mm.
everything that I had in my household from my mom and dad's house, because I had never moved out of that household, I took with me, and I never got any of it back. He was supposed to be shipping it to me, never got it. And so I only had
Jesus.
maternity clothes and a suitcase of clothes for my child, so that when we went to Virginia. And so what ended up happening is I stayed with a relative, slept on the couch, wanted to commit suicide because I felt like I was in the worst place ever, the lowest place ever. Didn't have anything to my name. I had a
Mm-hmm.
part-time job and just trying to work and get myself together. But then God spoke to me, and I call it an encounter on the couch. I have them often with him, and
Mm.
he birthed in me a book. And I was able to
Wow.
produce a stream of income, which was a poetry book that was sitting dormant for 8 years. It was already done. I already knew who I wanted to work with it, and it was laying dormant for 8 years, and it finally produced when I was having that couch encounter, wanting to commit suicide, and God told me publish the book, and I published a book, and it was my
Wow.
other stream of income. And then I had to leave out of that place by June 1st. And this is where I'm gonna go into. I lived in a transitional home, and I had
Mm-hmm.
until June 1st to get out of a relative's house. And that day I was packing to go into my car. God specifically told me, do not bring anything that you don't need, because you're going to, because in my mind, I was preparing to live in my car. But what God was really doing was he was telling me to only bring what you need to this next place you're going. And I called the transitional
Mm.
home. I had an interview with them because they like to protect their mom. So you have to go through an interview process. And they said, well, we'll get back to you next week. So next week was past my time to stay at this place. So I was like, okay, well, me and my daughter would just have to sleep in the car. And most people would be like, well, wouldn't you go back to your mother and father's house? Or what? It was like, to me, it was like, I was really hoping for God to do something. And it wasn't that I couldn't go back to my
Mm.
mother and father house, but I was going to go backwards and be in the same cycle and situation, and get comfortable all over again.
Mm.
So I was really praying that God would come through. That night we didn't sleep in my car. They called me that night, and they said that my story was so impactful, and that one of
Wow.
the interview questions that I answered was, I need a second chance. I know I just need a second chance. I just need to get back on my feet. And they said that statement for
Wow.
them was exactly what they needed to hear. And that night, me and my daughter stayed in a bed, slept in beds at a transitional home. And everything I had, God told me to pack into my car, I was able to unload that night, because I was going somewhere, but I didn't know where I was going. I thought the worst. I thought I was going to sleep in my car, but God had the best. And that transitional home completely changed my life in a year, and I was able to get back on my feet after that. So that is the story. That is the story.
Wow. I mean, just your story is just so amazing. And I mean, you just said so many nuggets just within that.
Yeah.
Wanting a family with the child of your father, that's a real
Yeah.
thing. And I think that whether, unfortunately, whether you're treated badly
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
not, you still want
Mhm.
that family, because you want your
Yeah.
child to be in that type of
Yeah.
environment. That's a
Yeah.
real feeling. And I think that most of the time, so many people kind of just, they tell single mothers, well, if you're doing that, just leave them
Mhm.
alone, just do this, just
Yeah.
do that. But it's not that
Mhm.
easy for a single mother, because we want that family
Yes.
connection, and we want it to be with that
Yes.
child, that child's
Yeah.
father. That's a real
Mhm.
feeling. Now, of course, now if it's toxic or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, okay, that's something completely
Correct.
different. But deep down inside, that's like a genuine,
Mhm.
true feeling. Um, and you said something about the mental health
Mhm.
aspect of it. You said that you were sitting on your couch when God gave you, when you said you had that encounter with
Mhm.
God, that it was then that you were dealing with
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts. And just not mothers in general, but not discounting what other mothers go through, but single mothers um, are more prone to deal with mental health, because we don't have that
Yeah.
support, or our support as
Yeah.
needed, or and so many women deal with postpartum
Yeah.
depression. Like, that's like a
Yeah.
real thing. I mean, just not even, I mean, if we take it and look at it from a Black culture
Hmm.
period, it's really become this
Yeah.
big thing that we are seeing. So I really appreciate you sharing that. But the thing I really
Hmm.
want to get to, you said that you didn't go back to your
Hmm.
parents. It was, and you had a
Hmm.
week, or the week past the deadline was before June, was after June 1st. And so I think that that's very key to kind of pinpoint that out, because you say you were waiting on God to
Yeah.
move. And I think that often of times we want to do it
Yeah.
ourselves, and we want
Hmm.
to work. We just want to do it. Okay, God, well, if you ain't gonna do it, I'm gonna
Exactly.
go ahead and take care of this. I'm gonna let
Yep.
this go.
Hmm.
I gave it to you, but you ain't do it
Exactly.
in fast
Hmm.
enough for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this. But I think that that's very powerful in trusting God and believing in Him during the most toughest and hardest
Yeah.
parts of
Yeah.
our lives. I mean, every time I go through a tough part of my life, like, I think, like, there's this picture of this guy that keeps hammering. It's a meme. He keeps
Hmm.
hammering and hammering and hammering, and it's a gold on the other side of
Hmm.
him hammering, and he gives
Hmm.
up.
Yep. Yep.
And he was right
Yeah.
there. So every time, for me personally, or when I decide I want to give up, I'm like, man, no, there has to be something. I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
pushing because it's
Yeah.
gold, or it's
When it
something
gets
on the
tough,
other
yeah.
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Hmm.
and Amara, you guys have moved, you guys
Hmm.
are settled. What happens next? How did you transition into, because just hearing
Hmm.
parts of your story, you used to work a
Right.
9 to 5, and you quit your 9 to 5 and started full-time entrepreneurship. Walk us through a little bit
Okay.
of that journey.
So I worked at my job for 3 years. So at the time when I was living in a transitional home, that was the job that I got full time, that God blessed me with, and I was able to save money, and I was able to have make enough money to move out into an apartment. And at that time, again, financial things were still being squared away, because at the Natasha house, which is where I stayed at the transitional home, they prepare you, they help you out financially. They really push you so
Mm,
that you can be able to survive back out there in the world again and make great decisions. So I stayed at my job for 3 years, and I called that my David experience, where David was tending to sheep, because a lot of times
mm, mm-hmm,
God will
mm-hmm,
have us in a place, and He's asking us to tend to the people that you're around. And so I was in the front of the office, and I was tending to these ladies who were there. And when I say tending, I was protecting them. I
mm,
dealt with customer service, and I would always make sure that the ladies had what they need or make it convenient for them, because I knew they were working hard back there. I was that frontline person that people saw first before they even went to the back. So I served them, I catered to them, I provided what
mm,
I could provide. And I felt myself getting weary, because I knew that this wasn't it. I knew that I was supposed to minister to women, right?
right,
But I knew that this wasn't just
yeah,
it. And so what ended up happening was this time last year around summertime, I got another position within the same office. They wanted me to work in the back to help them, and they were going to pay me more. And around that time, a girl
mm,
ended up getting my position up front for the summertime. It was for temporary, because I was working in the back. So what ended up happening was I was actually training that young lady to take my position. And let me fast forward and tell you how that worked. So I was telling her then last year, I was like, I know that I'm not going to be here long. Would you like this position? If it ever came up? And she said, yeah. I said, I will train you for it. I'll give you the foundational work for it. And it reminds me of David, because before David was called to the kingdom, but he still went back to tend to his sheep. But when he did
yeah,
have to leave, he left his sheep with shepherd, another shepherd. And so the
yep,
following
mm-hmm.
year, bringing up to last year,
Woo!
in June, no, February, before the pandemic hit, I was asking, I felt like God told me, you're about to shift and you're about to go into full-time entrepreneurship. I said, okay, well, God confirm it. Because you've been through, you've been through a transitional home, and you've been through losing money, and you've been through the traumaticness of that. You just want to make sure that it's God's hand upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And so last year I said, okay, God, I was able to save $10,000. last year. Money kept coming
Wow.
from out of nowhere, and I didn't. God told me, don't touch it. Sit it in the savings account, pay your tithes, but don't
Mm.
touch the money because I'm going to tell you what to do with it. I didn't touch the money. I lived off of the paycheck that was given to me. Then he confirmed again. I said, okay, God, well, if I'm going to leave my job, I see that you've given the finances, but I need you to, where's Amara going to go? Your daughter. Because I can saw him about his daughter. And I
Yeah.
ended up looking up virtual schooling because I was like, well, either she's going to go to school or virtual. This is before the pandemic made a really hit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look it up. And then, God, you tell me. Well, when the pandemic hit and everything shut down, I was like, I want my daughter to be on a routine because right now, I worked for the school system and schools were up in the air about what they were going to do or how they were going to do it, which was going to leave me to staying at home with my daughter anyway. And although they let me work from home, I was eventually
Mm-hmm.
going to have to go back to work, which would have led me to put my daughter in a daycare, which is an expense that I didn't have because that's why she was in public school. So God literally made it so
Right.
that the transition was going to be smooth. May 5th, I called my job and I said,
Wow.
he confirmed, and that was the second confirmation schooling. And then, oh, a third confirmation was I asked them for a raise. Okay. When I asked them for a raise, they denied
Mm-hmm.
it. They didn't give me the raise that I asked for. I was making under $30,000, and I just asked them, "Can I at least make 30,000?" Wanted to ask more for that, but can we at least get to 30,000 at least? And they didn't give it to me. They actually gave me a little bit underneath it. And so that was my third confirmation because God actually made me stay and still serve, even though they didn't give me the raise. And what I believe God was doing was he
Mm.
was trying to say, let me see what you're going to do with the money I give you, because this is your confirmation that you asked for. But let me see if you're going to be a good steward. Let me see if you're still going to serve, even though they didn't give you the raise. And let me see if you're paying attention, right? Because this pandemic is about to hit and you're not going to be able to go back to your job because you have a daughter who needs you to help her with her schoolwork. So May 5th, I called them and said, June 1st will be my final day working. And so I was able to leave my job. Now, here's another thing. This is about God and his care and how he tries to see us. When I showed up on my last day, which was June 1st to turn everything in, they were struggling with who was going to do the financial piece because I again was that front center person. And God told me, it was like another test was thrown at me. Are you going to help them, Audrey? So I told them, I'll help, but on my terms. So I will work from home only. Bills will have to be sent to me. I would tell them, and God was showing me, he showed me the accounts. And in these accounts were millions of dollars. And that's what I was working with. And he said, this is how
Wow.
your business is going to look. But you need to see this and how to maneuver it. And so everything that I was doing at my job
Mm.
as a company, maneuvering that money and transitioning it and seeing how everything worked together and seeing how to pay people when they travel and different things of that nature, he was going to use it for my business because the knowledge that came from it now can go into my
Mm.
business, right? So he said, my
Yes, a
obedience to
whole
saying
setup.
I'll do it even though I'm leaving, I'll do it. And I helped the young lady, and the young lady who I talked to last year, she got the job. She moved into the position. So that was another confirmation. So
Wow.
God gave me confirmation after confirmation after confirmation, and he's still giving it to me to continue to let me know. So that's how that transition happened. And I've been full time since October, because that's when I officially left the job, because I was working part time for them to help with the finances. And then I went full time into business, and God's been showing up in that as well, like just showing up in ways that I can't even explain. And I'm so thankful for it because I said yes and I was obedient. So that's the story behind how all of that went down.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. When you said that you were growing weary, the scripture that came to
Mhm.
mind was do not grow
Yep.
weary in well doing.
Mhm.
And you got weary, but you stayed there. And I think that's amazing. Like God is so like faithful that he will
Mhm.
show you little bit of where you're going
Mhm.
before you actually get there. So the fact that you were dealing with these
Mhm.
accounts with millions of dollars, and I mean, this is not the first story that I've heard of people or of God
Mhm.
showing people little by little,
Mhm.
oh, this is where you're going. So let me just go ahead
Exactly.
and give you a little glimpse. It's kind of almost
Exactly.
like a
Yeah.
sneak peek.
Yeah.
Like, he's so
Yeah.
cool for that. Like, God is amazing for like being able to like show us that. And the beautiful thing that you also said is that, you know, you said that you were raising
Yeah.
somebody else to take your position. So you were training her, but I mean, to me, I
Mhm.
think of it as raising. So you set the
Yeah.
tone, you set the standard for that role,
Yeah.
but that's just not within the
Yeah.
job. That's like in life. Like, you know, like we're not called to
Yeah.
go through this thing or to learn stuff
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
just for us. And when I got that
Mhm.
and I had that revelation, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm going through
Girl,
this,
let me
but
say
this is
that.
just
Let me
not
say
for
something on
me.
what you're about to say.
So,
She got the
yeah.
raise and the position that I was fighting for. And see,
What?
this is the part
What?
where you know God's in it, right? Because I wasn't fighting for myself because when God told me to back down after I asked, he was doing something, and the girl who stepped
Wow.
in that position, it was for her.
For
And
her.
that's the thing that we forget. When you choose to say yes to
Wow.
God, everything you do is not a setup for just you. It's a setup for who's coming behind you, because it's a gift for me to be
Yes.
able to leave my job and be full-time
Right.
entrepreneur and be with my child, right? That's
There it
more than
is.
the raise that they were going to give me.
Yeah.
So I literally was fighting for a raise and for
Jesus.
a different title, because they were going to eventually change the position. But when I was in it, they weren't going to change it. They weren't going to give me the raise. They were eventually going to do it, because when they have the money, and being a single mother, they feel like they know you need this position. There were things there that I know that was set up to try to stop me from getting what I knew was supposed to be mine. But when I told them I was leaving, and all the things that I was doing for them that they wanted her to do, they had to change the title and they had to give her the increase. And that's what we do. I literally was setting that
Yeah.
position up for her. That's what it was for. And it was
Mhm.
mind blowing. And I could sit here and
Mhm.
be like, oh,
Yep.
I'm jealous that she got my position. But God was like, what I have for you is better than that. That's better than that. What do you know? And so,
Right.
as a believer, I could have sat back and been like, dang, I could have kept
Yeah.
my job, all this. But they knew my value and my worth, and they knew it. And so they knew my value
Mm.
and my worth, because they were willing to give me what I asked for, right? But they ended up actually giving her more, because that position that I had, I created that position. It wasn't just a
Wow.
secretary position. That was an administrative position. Like, it should have been paid. People that were older were making more than me, and they were not doing as much as I was doing. But when God is sending you in to do
Wow.
something, right? I left my mark in there, right? They're going to always remember me because I left
Mhm.
something with them. And it wasn't just the experience of working with me, but it was God, and how I could sit there after
Yeah.
you told me no and still serve you. You know what I'm saying? And that's the God that we serve. And so that position,
Yeah.
that was for her. That position, that pay, that change in the title was for her. and and I'm and that's how God works. He
Man,
chased her
wow.
down, because that's his daughter, and he said, "It's not for you, Audrey. What you're fighting for, that's not for you. I'm gonna move you out the way, and she's gonna get what you talked about in
Mhm.
rooms with them. She's gonna get it." So you were speaking on behalf of the person that was gonna be
Yeah.
taking over that position. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, you said it.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and it's so amazing. Like, I mean, like, once we really
Yeah,
capture that revelation, I mean, I'm telling you, it'll be so much more gracious and so much more graceful to go through trials and tribulations for
yeah.
you once you have that real revelation. So, when you listen to this episode, ladies, I really want to encourage you to really capture that revelation, because it's extremely powerful that, you're
Exactly.
just asking God, well, why me? Why me, God? This is just too hard. It's just too,
Yeah,
and not saying that you
yeah.
can't feel that way. I mean, because that's a real feeling, but it's just not for you. It's definitely for somebody else. And so, man, wow, that's just a beautiful thing. I just absolutely love that. So, can you talk to the people? So, you told us a little bit about what you do. You're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're a startup coach. Like, can you talk to us a little bit about your
Yeah.
businesses and a little bit, I guess, more in depth of
Yeah,
how
so
you
it's
cater
funny you
and
say that,
help
right? And I
single
know this is
mothers?
confirmation from you. I've been trying to push my business outside of the single mother thing, but God told me I've called you to single moms, so I need you to push it to single moms. So thank you for that confirmation. But the things that I do, so
Yeah.
I have a clothing line. It's called Curses Broken. And it's actually something that me and my daughter we are co-partners in them, and the reason why is because it's for families, different dynamics of families. So it might start with single moms, but the point of it is to
Mm,
go into every household and be a word that God already broke the curse. You're not breaking generational curse. You don't have the power to do that. God already did it on the cross. And so curse is broken is a word that is being seen and sent out to
yeah.
houses for those who will wear it and walk in it, to be that reminder. So that's one business that God has given me. The other business that God has given me is the startup coach. So what I do is the same way I told you I published a book. Well, that book was for that particular time because I needed that extra stream of
Mm-hmm.
income, right? And so what I like to do is everybody's not
Yeah.
called to be an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean you're not called to have some streams of income with using your gifts. You know what I mean? Because some people like their corporate jobs and some people don't.
Right.
So what
Right.
I help people do is I help people build the
Right. Yeah.
foundation. As single moms, we're always trying to do what we can because we might not have the big money to invest into a marketing plan or get a business coach. So what I do is I get you to start the foundation so you can start making money in your business, and then when you start making money, you can then move up and invest into
Mm,
something that's going to help your business grow, because you have to invest in order for it to grow. But the first investment can be start with me, and then you
right.
move forward to what you may need in the future. So I help single moms build that foundation. So if it's a book, if it's an ebook, if it's you starting your podcast, if it's you starting your YouTube channel, just putting the idea in your hand and allowing God to use your gift to bring in extra money so that you can do what's your purpose to do. So that's the
Yeah.
startup. Next one that I do is speaking. I share my story. I speak. I motivate. I use scriptures
Mm-hmm.
to talk about how God is the same thing He did in the Word. You can live it out here. Just your name, the situation may look different, but He is the same. And so um, I speak, I motivate
Right.
single moms, I give them a word, and I try to make sure that I'm speaking intentionally and strategically, because I don't always want to speak just because I have the gift of speaking. So
Yes.
I'm very, 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 I make sure
Mm,
I pay attention to that because I want God to use my voice. I don't just want it to be, just me talking just because I can. So I try to be very cautious of that. So those are my three businesses.
right.
That is how
Yeah.
I help single mothers, and just sharing my story continuously. Sharing what I'm doing, sharing what my daughter's doing. My daughter is a different breed. She's about to be 7. The mentality of this little girl and who God has placed them in as a vessel in my life is absolutely phenomenal and amazing. And I'm just trying to keep up with her. So, um, so yeah, sharing my daughter, sharing the many
Right.
things that I do with her. I will have a book out called Conversations About an Absent Father. Um, for my daughter, because I feel like it's very hard for them to have a conversation,
Mm,
and I need to help them
mm-hmm.
detach from the man you once dated and knew, and you had intimacy with the father that this child does not know. And so God has given me that, and then I have some other things He's given me as well that we're going
Mm,
to continue on with. And I'm just trying to be obedient and prepare. I'm trying to prepare so whenever the opportunity or the assignments come, that everything is already ready and set up. So that's the next thing that I'll be working on, is conversations about the absent father, for a mother who needs to have that with their child. So yeah, yep. Mhm.
wow. That is
Thank you.
amazing. Such an amazing story. And I just
Thank
absolutely
you.
just love your spirit. I love hearing your story, your testimony. It's just beautiful, and what God is doing in you
Thank
and
you.
through Amara as well. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm just so honored to have had you on the podcast today. I really truly believe that it's really going to bless somebody. You know, when I started this podcast, I said, listen, God, now, if
Yes.
it only bless
That's it.
one person,
That's all you
just
need.
one, if I can get
Because heaven
one,
celebrates the one.
that's all I need. And then he said, oh no, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be more than that.
Yep.
Yes, they
Yep.
do. They really do. And so I don't go into every episode. I say, okay, Lord, my prayer is
Yep.
just one. If you touch one with this episode, that's it. So I really appreciate you coming on to the show today. Definitely looking forward to doing more
Thank
work
you
with
so
you. I'm going
much.
to go get me a t-shirt
Thank
this
you.
week. So I'm super excited about that.
Hmm.
How can the
Yeah.
women that are listening, how
Yeah.
can they get in
So
contact
you
with
can
you? How
contact
can they
me
buy your
on
shirt? Tell it
Instagram
all.
at Dear Single Mommy, Twitter at Dear Single Mommy. Everything is at Dear Single Mommy. You can also get T-shirts. You can go to www.cursebrokencollection.com. It is also on my Instagram page, so you can click the link, and all of my links are there. Ebooks, T-shirts, all of it. And just reach out to me. You can always DM me. I'm very, open when I, to be able to, speak life to people if they need it or if they have something that they want me to join forces with. I'm down for it. So yeah, that's how you can reach me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And ladies, if you didn't get all of that, it will be in the description for the podcast. The podcast is available on Spotify, Google, and also Apple Podcasts. So if you missed what she said, I will make sure that it is in the description along with her bio. Listen, you guys make sure you go follow
Thank
her and
you.
support her. She's really a beautiful spirited person. Like I said, after the second time I heard her speak, I said, I need her. I need to get her onto my show. And it's very rare that I do that. I will literally follow and watch people for months before I bring them onto my show. Period, because I'm very intentional about who I bring onto my podcast. Because, like you said, I don't
Mm-hmm.
bring just anybody up here
No.
just because you got
Yeah.
expertise in it. That doesn't mean anything to me. What is God saying about you? What is God
Amen.
saying about this person? Because this podcast is just not for you or about you. This is for other single mothers to be encouraged and to be uplifted. So I really thank God and appreciate um
Thank
you for
you.
coming on to the show. And
Thank
we just
you.
absolutely I just absolutely love and adore
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Ah,
you.
I just love your
Thank you.
spirit. It's just so genuine and sweet, you know. And so I thank you and I bless God for
Yeah,
you. Can
definitely.
you do
God,
you mind
thank
praying us out?
you. Thank you for your daughter who you birthed this idea of allowing women to share their stories to encourage other women who are moms. God, I decree and declare that whatever you have for her in her life right now, that you will begin to birth it out of her womb. And so I ask that as she's poured out, that you just pour right back into her, God. That as
Amen.
she speaks, that you pour right back into her, God. Revive her, God. And we thank
Amen.
you for her obedience and her yes. To everyone listening right now, God, you have a plan and a
Yes,
purpose for them. If
God.
they're dealing with something, depression, we ask that you allow them to know that they can get up, God. Even if they just put their feet on the floor, God. And as they get up, they release the heavy burden unto
Yes,
you. We
God.
ask that every person who's listening right now will be encouraged to get started with the business plan, get started with the idea, to walk in obedience at their job,
Yes,
to be
Lord.
patient, not to move so quickly and hastily, but to be patient on what God has for them. We pray for the woman who is lonely, who desires relationship, God, but we ask
Yes,
that you
God.
give her a desire to want your best, so that she won't just have a relationship, but she will have a partner to her purpose and her destination in the kingdom.
Yes.
God, we just thank you that you have used us as vessels to bring women to a place where they know who they are and who you have created them to be. And we ask that we continue to say yes, that we be obedient to what you've done, to what you've given us, and that we continue to be a good steward over it. We thank you for the not just the we don't thank you for the opportunities, we thank you for the assignments, God. We thank you for the assignments that lead us to the right person. Even if it's one
Yes,
daughter that you're
Lord.
chasing down in a room, that we know that that one daughter, just like the woman at the well, can become so excited that that one daughter ends up telling everybody because of our obedience is one person, that one person literally can tell about 10 or 15 people, and that word has reached to 10 or 15 people. So we thank you for that, God, and we honor you today. And I pray for the rest of the week to be amazing, wherever people are listening from. And in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Yes, God. Amen. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you would like to sow a seed onto this podcast, as it continues to grow, I'm definitely looking forward to bringing more mothers onto this platform, or entrepreneurs onto this platform. And to be real, it costs. Point blank, period. I'm gonna just be real. As I continue to grow with this,
Mhm.
God is taking this podcast to a whole nother level, and
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
costs money. I'm just gonna be honest. I mean, it does. It is what it is. So if you want to sow a seed, if God placed on your heart to sow a seed, you can DM me on Instagram at Dear Single Mama Podcast on Instagram, as I'm also on Facebook at Dear Single Mama Podcast on Facebook, and I am also on Clubhouse as Clarion
Yes.
B, and Miss Audrey
Yep.
is on Clubhouse as well.
Yep.
Is it Dear Single Mommy as well on podcast Clubhouse?
Mhm.
Yep. So dear single mommy with the
Mhm.
Y. I know some people spell it with the I sometimes, but it's with a Y on Clubhouse as well. So make sure you reach out and follow her. Go support her. And also, if you desire to be a guest on the show, if you desire to be a guest on the show, or you just have a topic that you want to hear about that you don't hear other single mothers talking about, you can reach out to me via Instagram, again at Dear Single Mama Podcast. And I also have I's a wife hoodies and t-shirts.
Mhm.
It's pretty much displaying that you're just not a single mother, that you're called to be a wife. And so I have that available on my website at www.clarion.com, which will also be in the description box for you to purchase as well. And so I thank you all for listening. Thank you
Thank
all for
you.
tuning in. Thank you again, Audrey. We really appreciate you. God bless you, and may God increase you. Only He can bless you. I can only, sow and seeds, but God is the ultimate rewarder of all things. And so I just plead the blood of Jesus over you, over your daughter, and over your
Yeah.
businesses, and
Amen.
may you see increase in your business this year like never before. Um, and so I thank you, and God bless you guys. And I love you guys from the bottom of my
Bye.
heart. And so